Okay, hold on here, guys. We're not live. Are we live? Yeah, we're live. Okay. All right. Just a second. When I started kayak fishing nearly 3 decades ago, I never realized at the time that there were a few others doing the same all across the country. As time went on, more and more people were being introduced to kayak fishing by these early pioneers. As I searched online in these early years, I was amazed at what others were catching from these little plastic craft we call kayaks. The kayak fishing story will be told in a series of podcasts as we interview these legends and people who know them. We will progress from the early days to the kayak anglers of today as we piece together how kayak fishing became such a popular activity among outdoor enthusiasts. All right, here we are, Trey. Week 2. And what do you think?
You know what? It's a little warmer out than it was last week, but we're about to
Yeah.
get into the cold down.
Well, I stopped by my apparel maker today and she gave me the stocking cap, and so we're gonna have stocking caps now on our website.
Well, I actually went out, so I've been really trying to figure out about. I guess base layers are a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, I remember in prison they'd give you a pair of Well, you in county jail they'd give you a pair of thermals, and I always had thermals, and I always thought these things are really cheap and really good. Now I thought, man, I'll go out and spend $40, 20. Dude, these things are like $100 for top, and then $100 for the bottom if you want to get a good pair.
Wow.
So I actually, forked out some money and bought some really good base layers. I guess that's where it's at. So I'm
Well, you're
stepping
gonna need them if you're gonna go fishing next week.
got this Saturday on Palm de Terre. Got the second to the last stop of the Moyak Winter Series. So
Nice. Well, guess what I'm doing tomorrow?
uh teaching.
Nope, I'm going ice fishing.
Nice.
I'm gonna get taught. I don't ice fish much, but I got invited, so I'm gonna go. Got to get some bass. This weekend, Bassmasters at Lake Havasu should be a good one.
They got over 100 people already there.
Yeah, yeah. Kayak bass fishing. Chad Hoover's doing a lot of stuff. You got to get on that site, kayakbassfishing.com, kayak bass fishing on Facebook. Expo February 1st, and then want to wish Adam DeWitt from Nebraska good luck down there. So without further ado, we got the I believe one of the legends, if not the legend in kayak fishing tonight, and that is Mr. Jim Sammons. Welcome, Jim.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and Jim is of course of course we know he's caught some fish in freshwater, but he is your saltwater guru from California. And again, he's our second guest of the year. He's been kayak fishing a long time, and we're going to visit with him tonight and find out how this all started with him. So, Jim, so first of all, can you just let us know like how it's going for you, and then kind of go back and tell us how did Jim Sammons find kayak fishing, or did kayak fishing find Jim Sammons?
Well, first off, it's going good.
Yeah.
I shared this, and I even said it's been a long time since I've talked kayak fishing, so I'm really excited. Because that was my passion, was sharing about this sport. It's been a rough few years. COVID, kind of shut down my TV show, and then shoulder surgery, then severe back injury. It's an old injury, but it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where I couldn't walk. I am right now, I've turned the corner through, if anybody's interested in something to help their back, it's PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma injections. They gave me my life back. I went from needing a cane to, I was out swinging a sledgehammer the other day, and I can do stuff. And I got my life back. I haven't been back on a kayak yet, but that's right around the corner. So things are definitely on the upturn. So I'm ready to get back at it.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited. I went fishing not too long ago on my boat, but it's been, like I say, it's been tough. And honestly, I was talking to somebody the other day. They actually called me asking for a recommendation about something, and I had to be straight up honest. I go, look, I have paid really very, very little attention to kayak fishing
Mm-hmm.
because it was getting to depression. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. I couldn't do anything. So then following kayak fishing and doing all that, I didn't want to watch videos. I didn't want to see it
Yeah.
because it was just like I was getting too depressed.
Yeah.
So now I've just started watching videos again. I watched a fishing video earlier today. It's like I said, I feel like I've turned that corner and ready to get back at it, but I still got a lot of stories. So
I would say I mean, just that. I want to just dive into that just a minute because you said you kind of went into this kind of depression, this funk because I mean, you are Jim Sammons, right? Like you did this. This was like a mecca of your life for, a very, very significant amount of time. And then you having that injury and some things happen. And now you've seen it kind of just really fast forward really quick. And you're like, dude, I've been doing this. This is so it just, and it's kind of like you got to sit on the bench and you're sitting there watching these dudes. Yeah, that would cause depression, bro. Like,
yeah. As I said, I wouldn't even watch it. Didn't follow it. I mean, a little bit. There's Facebook guys posting. I'll take a look every once in a while, see what's going down in Panama or something, because that's always been a passion of mine down there. And but overall, I really had to take a huge step back from it. Otherwise, I was just bummed all the time.
Wow.
I mean, literally, I needed a cane to walk 20 feet, and I was in pain all the time. So,
wow.
but
So
I'm not now. I'm happy now.
so what I want to tell people though here, Jim, is hopefully you're on the mend. You're going to get better here and be able to get out fish again.
Yes,
But
sir.
I just want to go back in time. I started kayak fishing late '90s, and I bought a kayak and went out and did it, and had no idea anybody else was even kayak fishing. I mean, no, I had no idea. I get on the internet, type in some kayak fishing, and your name pops up. So I started following you on there and seeing how you were doing, and then I gave you a call, and you had already been kayak fishing quite a while, but you were kayak fishing way before that, I'm sure. Can you tell us about kind of how did you find kayak fishing?
Well, I've lived in San Diego my whole life,
Mhm.
and surfer,
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
and we used to fish off our surfboards.
yeah.
I mean, that was our big thing. We had longboards. If there was no surf, you paddle out. Basically, you have a backpack and paddle out and go fish the kelp and whatnot for calico bass, and
Mhm.
or down in Mexico when we'd go on a surf trip. We'd finish surfing, then we'd paddle out and go fish.
Mhm.
So that was kind of where that feel for personal powered watercraft kind of thing and fishing really started for me.
Mhm.
Um, when I met my wife, now I've been married for 38 years.
Mhm.
And when I met my wife, her dad was a waterman. Just was a wonderful, wonderful man.
Mhm.
And he was into kayaking. And when I say kayaking, he was into, 18, 20-foot long Kevlar boats that were rockets.
Yeah.
And so he introduced me to paddling. And so I would start paddling, and I fell in love with paddling. But those boats weren't exactly, the best to fish off of.
Yeah.
But when the first sit on top type of boats, the ocean kayaks, the ocean kayak original scupper, and then the Scupper Pro and the Scupper Pro Tank Well,
Mhm.
those came out. I first saw those when they first came out, and I'm like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my father-in-law actually bought my wife and I our first kayaks,
Wow.
and then I just fell in love with it. I lived very close to the beach at the time, and so I'd get off work because I worked super super early in the morning. You get off work and come home and go surfing or
Mhm.
jump on the kayak, and
What
kind of
what years was that?
late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So about 1992, 93,
Mhm.
my buddy, who was always too cheap and wouldn't buy a kayak, so he'd always bring mine. we'd go out fishing. He'd be like, every time we would finish kayaking, I would stand on the beach for another hour talking to people because people were always coming up, like seeing us. Because we were considered freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, I know. Yeah.
We were considered just absolutely nuts that we were paddling out there and catching yellowtail and big fish off our kayak. So I would spend an hour talking to people about it afterwards. And my buddy's like, you know what? You love talking about this so much. You should try and do something with it. So I started guiding like 90, 92, 93.
Yeah.
And so kind of was a side gig. I was a truck driver for Pepsi-Cola. And on my days off, I was kayak fishing and guiding, and started making accessories. And it's like I made a lot of the first things before any manufacturers was making them. Rod holders, live bait tanks, all that stuff. I was making them and selling them, and outfitting people's boats. And it's just, like I said, I just absolutely loved it. And I loved sharing it. I loved guiding. I mean, I really enjoyed sharing the sport and paddling and teaching people to paddle. I really like teaching people to paddle. I wish more people would learn how to paddle.
Fascinating.
It was just a passion for me. And so I became more involved with ocean kayak, because that's how I was paddling mainly, particularly when the Scupper Pro Tank Well came out. That was my go-to boat. That's what I caught my first marlin on. Most people would be scared to death of that boat now. It's so not like anything that's out there now. Where it's long, skinny, light. Actually, a funny story on that is we used to joke about it. People that I knew from the paddling world that were using glass and Kevlar boats. They're like, God, the Scupper Pro is a pretty good paddling boat, but it's just so heavy. What I would give to have that heavy boat now. It was 58 pounds. And like we were talking about before we came on here. I mean, I used to carry it over my head down a long flight of stairs down to the beach. And you just can't do that now. I mean, all these boats, 135, 150 pounds. It's like, but
now I can barely carry the battery over my head.
Right. It's just like these boats were so long and skinny, and people are always like, you're going to get your feet beat off. There's so many pictures of me sitting with my feet in the water. That's just what we did.
That's a lot of it was stability, wasn't it?
It gave you stability, a little more leverage because you got in more of a high seated position with your feet down. You could pull on a fish a little bit harder.
Right.
And it just became such a habit for me to sit there with my feet in the water. It's like to be on these boats that now you're doing the dang splits to try to get your ankles over the side.
Right. Hey, can you tell us the marlin story?
The marlin story. The first marlin.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was fishing with a former client of mine who became a very good friend. And not guiding. What does a guy do on his day off? Goes fishing.
Yeah.
So we went out to La Jolla Shores, where we would launch from. And back then, the deal was we'd launch about 4:00 in the morning, paddle up to Scripps Pier, and get up underneath the lights of the pier and catch mackerel. So because we had live bait tanks on our kayaks, and a few days before we had gone out, I had seen a marlin in La Jolla.
Wow.
So, which is super rare. I mean, super rare. This was an El Nino year, so we had the super warm water, just purple blue water. So we go up there, we catch our live bait, and we get about maybe less than a mile out in front of Scripps Pier, because Scripps Pier, that area is actually a protected area. You can catch bait, but you can't fish. So you got to get outside of it a little bit before you can put your baits in the water. And then we would paddle out and then over south down towards Point La Jolla. But we have the Scripps and La Jolla canyons there. I mean, just uber deep water, very close to shore.
Yeah.
And people in the East Coast don't know this kind of thing. I mean, within a quarter of a mile, I can be in 1,800 feet of water.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of upwelling, a lot of nutrients in the water and all that. So as we're paddling and we had finally put our baits in the water, I saw some flying fish pop up. And jokingly to my friend, I go, "Hey, dude, I just saw some flyers. We're probably going to get to marlin now." Within a few minutes, just an explosion behind me.
Jeez.
And, grab the rod, throw it in gear, spin around, blows up right off the bow of my boat, striped marlin.
Jeez.
Now, this time, I had never been near a marlin of any size, shape, in a boat, in a kayak, nothing. Now, I have a lot of experience with marlin on kayaks now. I've handled 49 of them, I think. But at that time, like I said, this was just crazy. So I immediately look at my watch, go, well, let's see how long this lasts. Now, I was on like I said, Scupper Pro. I was using a Shimano Charter Special with a little small graphite reel, not a big reel, with 20-pound Andy monofilament.
Wow.
No leader. So we're just like I said, let's see how long this lasts. 2.5 hours later, it's dragged me 8 miles out. Wow. And my buddy had to paddle the whole way with me. Another guy who was in the area saw what happened, and he paddled over to us and paddled out with us as well. And I had that marlin basically directly underneath my kayak. Could have reached down and grabbed it, touched it. But again, never having dealt with a marlin in any shape. We're 8 miles off the shore. This is before we had VHF radios or anything. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do?
No phone either, right? No phone.
No. This was pre-cell phones, or I certainly wasn't bringing a cell phone on the water with me back then.
Yeah.
And we got a couple photos of it. My buddy had the camera and got pictures of it jumping way, way out in front of me. So at least we had proof that it had happened. And I'm like, well, dude, I'm just going to pull on this fish as hard as I can, see if I can get him to roll. And if not, the line's going to break. But because he actually shot off a flare. My buddy shot off a flare.
Wow.
Because there was a boat going by in the distance, and it just kept going.
Oh, no.
So we're just like, okay, I'm just going to pull on it as hard as I can. And I pulled on it as hard as I could. And it just made a hard run and broke my line. Jeez. So that was the first one. And I had an 8-mile paddle back with an enormous smile on my face. Jeez. And like I said, thankfully, we got a couple of very, very tiny pictures of it way out in front of me.
Yeah.
And, so that was, I can remember that day like it was yesterday.
And it came out in the news because it kind of went, those days, it kind of went viral.
It did in a sense. Well, that first one did locally. A lot of people found out about it. The one that really went viral was actually my second one.
Okay.
Which was a couple of years later down in Baja.
Okay.
I was down in the East Cape where I was guiding trips, and I had a day off from clients, so I went out by myself with my Ponga driver, and so I had the kayak I was paddling, but I had him with me, take pictures, do whatever, rescue me if I get dragged 8 miles offshore again.
Yeah.
And then I got another one, and that one really, really blew up because I wish I had it in here. I have I still have the camera. It was a Sony waterproof digital camera. And I want to say it was 2 megapixels.
Gee.
And so I'm fighting this fish. And I toss my boat guy, Alonzo, my camera. I go, just try to get some pictures. Now, this camera was I don't know. It was about the size of my cell phone. It was smaller than my cell phone. It was half the size, but it fit in your hand pretty good.
Yeah.
Had a little screen on it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to tell him in my broken Spanish with his broken English how to operate my camera.
Yeah.
And he's holding it out like this. And it actually had a very nice form and function that it fit in your hand. You could just take the picture. But he's like doing this, trying to use both hands, take the picture. And I'm like, I don't know what we're going to end up with here. But he gets what I have been told by professional photographers was the perfect picture.
Wow.
If it had been taken with a high resolution camera, it would have been amazing. Problem is you couldn't blow it up much more than this because it would just blow out because it was such low. But I'm sitting in my kayak. My rod is bent over. The tip of my rod is just skimming the surface. The water is crystal clear, grease calm.
Oh, I've seen that picture.
So the line is just kind of skimming and you can see the silhouette of the marlin underneath my kayak.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just an amazing photo. It was printed all over the world.
Yeah.
So that one did go viral.
I love that picture. So, by the way, I have that camera, I believe, too, in my other room. The old Sony digital camera. I still have it.
Do you have the Sony that is white and blue? Yeah.
I have a black one, but I had one of the first white ones too, though. There. That's fascinating. And then, so how did you get towed out very far on that one?
That was the same. I mean, I was on it. That one was 2.5 hours. I don't know what it is about 2.5 hours, but some of my biggest fish have been 2.5 hours. My biggest thresher shark was 172 pounds, and it was 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Something about that number. But yeah, so like I said, I've caught a lot of marlin since then, but that one was very, very special. And like I said, it was.
So with the marlins, is that a catch and release deal? When you catch them, you release them? Like
pretty much. I mean, admittedly, that one, the one in Baja, my boat captain talked me into keeping it. And it doesn't go to waste down there, believe me. But I've released pretty much every single one I've ever dealt with. We've had a couple roll on us, but because I was getting clients on these things when I was guiding down to Mexico, and the blue marlin and black marlin down in Panama, and Howard McKim was fishing with me, and he got a big blue marlin. That was 5.5 hours and dragged him about 17 miles. That was absolutely nuts.
Let's get some pictures.
They're the epitome. They're the pinnacle of what you can catch off of a kayak, right? To me.
Yeah. Just a second here. Yeah, keep going here. I gotta. Oh man, I messed up.
So when you talk about a length on a marlin, what's the length on one? Like a really big one? What would the length be? What's that length look like?
Its body would probably be 7-8 feet. Its bill is another 3 feet, and that's the scary part. Is that bill? I had one that I was landing, and I made a mistake. Very good learning experience for me was in how I tried to land this. I tried to pivot it across its own body, and I got it up. I'm holding on to its bill, and then it shook and slammed, and its bill went right across in front of my face. It just missed.
My favorite picture of you is the one that I posted, and maybe you can see that. It's of you, and I want to say you're holding a big tarpon. Is that a tarpon?
Yeah, that's a tarpon. I actually have that. I have that thing in uber size on my wall in my office.
What was that like, dude? Like them things that's
tarpon. Man, I wish we had tarpon here. If we had tarpon here in San Diego, that I would fish for them every day. They are so much fun. They're so exciting. That fish there was was a brutal trip in Puerto Rico. I had been talking to the guide down there, and he's all arranged it for the very, very perfect time for us to come down. And right before we came down there, they just had heavy rains, and everything got washed out, and we fished for 6 days. I caught that fish, the only fish, with about 2 hours left on the last day.
Wow.
And so that's why that picture, I'm like, I mean,
You can see the joy in your face in that
the,
picture.
the joy, the relief.
Yeah.
That fish crapped all over me. It was the foulest, stinkiest thing ever.
Wow.
But we were still so amazingly happy. And the trip was so bad that our guide, he said, "You got to come back. You got to give me another chance." And we went back the next year and just crushed them.
Wow.
I got like 10 fish in one day. I mean, it was just bonkers, but so fun, so fun. And the guides are always blown away because they're used to dealing with boat fishermen and how long it takes them to land a fish. And we could land a fish so much faster than boat fishermen can, which a lot of people wouldn't expect being in the kayak, but you're winding yourself to the fish, you know? So it's a whole different thing. And we landed so many fish, and
Wow.
the tarpon fishing in Puerto Rico, the tarpon fishing on the east coast of Costa Rica, Silver King Lodge. I got 11 tarpon in one day there, and they were all big. I mean, it's just, like I said, I've been very lucky. I've been blessed to be able to go to the places I've been, to catch the fish I've been able to catch. Lucky, I'll take it.
So you say lucky, and we got a question, and we got a couple questions. One I want to catch on real quick is Jim Harding asked, assuming that you fish in all these really remote, kind of tropical, nice places, that sharks are a big deal. And we talk about the thrasher shark, but what is your craziest, maybe your scariest shark moment? Like, have you ever had encounters with great whites or hammerheads or something that just was like, all right, I don't want none of that?
Hammerheads, we get fairly often. They're a nuisance. They're just a pain. You know, I have a bigger fear of bears.
We're going to get into that too. That's going to be a little bit, because I know about your Alaska trip.
I have a fear of bears. Sharks, not so much. Now, with that said, I know plenty of friends who have seen white sharks. I've never actually seen one. My sketchiest moment with a shark was in New Zealand. And it's on video. It's out on our YouTube channel. We were catching yellowtail kingfish, and we got sharked a couple of times. And I was on a fish and telling my buddy, I go, man, I got sharked. And I was looking like this way, talking to my friend, and my camera guy's over here. And I had reached down and grabbed the jig that was in the mouth of what was left of my fish.
Gee.
And I go to lift it up, and I'm telling my friend, I got sharked again. And my cameraman, you can hear him go, whoa, 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 whoa. Shark came up and grabbed the fish that was in my hand. And I'm not looking at it. I just feel it tugging. And it's
man.
And it's like, yeah. And of course, feet in the water, as they always were. That was probably the sketchiest with a shark that I've
How far was your feet from that jig?
Well, like I said, you can see, I mean, that picture that's up there right now, you can see how my feet are hanging over the water.
Oh, man.
That's how I tended to sit. And I still do when I get on a kayak.
I sat that way. In the early days, I sat that way a lot because it was windy in southwest Nebraska, and that was the best way for me to get stability in the waves and so forth. Yeah. And then can I do a quick shout out? There's some people on here that have said some things, like Stacy Jordan. I'm just saying hi to these guys. Michael Tom.
Of course, yeah.
Kevin Pete, Court Country Kids Outdoors, Midwest Outdoor Boys, Jerry Spring, Jackie Dawson, Jennifer's on here. Jeremy.
I saw Chad Hoover was on there.
Yeah, he's on there.
Chad Hoover and the legendary Chad Davison's on here tonight.
Yeah, Chad. Jordan Rhodes. Jordan Rhodes, he's hit the nail on the head. There's so much content and things you can research nowadays. I can't imagine trying to learn this stuff on my own. Would you agree, Jim?
It's funny because, I mean, that's what we did. You know, it's like we had to learn it ourselves. There was nobody giving any instruction. And then Dennis came around. He became the first. I think Dennis started guiding just right about the same time as me, a little bit before me, but he had a big leg up with his kayak fishing website.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was setting the stage for a lot of things.
Okay.
And but for the most part, it was sharing information amongst the community
Yeah.
because nothing was manufactured.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we were making our own stuff. We were learning our own stuff. We were sharing ideas. When I would go kayak fishing, particularly in the early, I would know every single guy out there.
Yeah.
Well, there weren't that many of us,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
so you knew each other and you communicated with each other.
Right. Now, speaking of that, now I do want to say that we've got Ariska Beacon for Dominican Republic. I know him personally, by the way, guys.
Wow.
Dominican Republic is on here. I met him down there.
Awesome.
But Jim, I got to do this now since we're talking about guiding. Now, what year do you think you started guiding? What was that? What year do you think?
It was early 90s.
Okay.
Like
so I find
93.
Okay.
Two.
And I find you on the internet, and it was probably it had to be like 99 or 2000 in there somewhere. But I find you on the internet, and of course look, what is that? Is that a killer whale?
That's a killer whale in Alaska. There's a great story behind that one too.
Okay, we got to tell that, but I'm going to do the guide thing here real quick. And there's a marlin. There's another marlin, or either sailfish, marlin. I don't know.
That's a small striped marlin.
Okay, so there's what is that? A yellowfin?
That is my daughter with a yellowtail.
Yeah, I call it yellowfin. Okay, yeah. And is that Catalina Island in the back?
No, we are down at Cedros Island.
Okay, all right. Now
down off Baja Coast.
Here's one for you. This next one. Oh, okay. I'm going to come back to that. But who is this guy, Jim?
Don't tell me that's you, because
you took that picture. You took that picture.
That was one of the rod holders I used to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a barracuda down off La Jolla.
Yeah, that was me.
That's crazy.
So I got to tell you, I got to tell the story real quick, and you can chime in anytime. So I call you up because I had been told by another guy, hey, you got a guide, because that's another story. But anyway, I wanted a guide, so I wanted to learn how to do it. So I said, well, I'm gonna book a trip with Jim Sammons, and I was going to California anyway for a class reunion because I grew up in San Diego as well, and I left in 1976, and I combed the beaches just like you did. It was nuts, but I booked this trip, and I meet you at the beach. I don't know, it was early in the morning, it was dark, and you took the kayak off the top of the truck, like just carried it off. I'm like, this dude's tough. We get ready to go, and you're getting stuff ready, and I decide to get a wild hair and take off, and you're like, no. And just when you said that, a wave just destroys me. And so you showed me how to get out there, and you had all the equipment. So we get out past the waves right away, and you're like, okay, we got to catch some bait. So you got the sabiki rig, and to my right, you go, hey, check out to your right. And I look over, and here's some dolphins. And he goes, oh, they're just checking you out. And I'm like, I got the heebie-jeebies like you wouldn't believe out there. Because I don't know how, it's deep, and I think we're going out with the tide as well. Anyway, below me, a manta ray comes underneath me, like the size of a truck comes underneath me, and then you proceed to start catching bait. Then we go out and we find the kelp, and there's the sport fishing boats out there, and you had a radio. I didn't have a radio. I had my, a water vest you gave me. Anyway, the mistake I made, you put I think it was mackerel or greenies. What were we using?
Greenback, probably greenback mackerel.
Greenback mackerel. We were using that because I remember the word green. So I put it on there, and I got it out behind. I stick my rod in the rod holder there, right? Only thing was I didn't set the drag, and so I got a big bite. And you're like, and you were shouting out, you got to set your, and I couldn't get the rod out, so I missed that big fish. Well, anyway, I did catch that big barracuda there. It looks big to me anyway. And anyway, we fished out there in the kelp, and we were actually trying to catch a thresher shark. And there was a guy by us that did catch a yellowfin tuna that day.
Probably a yellowtail.
A yellowtail.
Yellowfin tuna are pretty rare to get in.
Okay, I don't know why I say that, but it's a yellowtail. But look at that roller behind me. Okay, now I don't know what they were, 5 feet. I don't know. But what I got to do is go back. You go, okay, it's time to go back in. So we're going back in because the tide's going in, right? Is that kind of what you did?
It's more of a time of day thing. It
Yeah.
usually gets windy by
Yeah.
noon. It starts to get windy, and it's usually, and we start so early in the morning. That's about done time.
Okay. So I gotta go. Oh man. Anyway, so we go in, and I'm gonna bring up this picture here. See that? Oh, I gotta go back to the live thing here. So here's you surfing a wave on your kayak, right?
Yeah, I love it. I
So,
love doing that.
so we're getting close to the waves, and this is where I'm like going to myself, okay, I've surfed, I've been on a kneeboard, I've done all it, but this is a kayak. And you take all my gear. You go, no one has ever made it yet. And I go, oh boy, here we go. But you coached me and you taught me and you said, look, get to this position and you can ride that way. Because I remember you telling me this. Two things you told me that still remember today. On the way out, you says, Marty, we're going to go paddling and we might catch a fish. And on the way in, you said, and we did catch a fish. And then on the way in, you said, you cannot race a wave.
You ain't gonna beat it. You can race it, you won't win.
Yeah. And so you said, do this. And so I surfed that wave all the way in. I remember you praised me saying, no one's ever done it before. Good job. And
That's
I remember
awesome.
that was my day right there. Was maybe
It's amazing if people listen.
Yeah.
It's not that tough,
Right.
but it's not instinctual how to handle a wave.
Yeah.
Kayaks love to broach. They love to just turn sideways, and then it's just a matter of knowing how to control the boat.
Yeah.
And that's bracing, which I'm doing in that photo there.
Yeah.
But people want to lean away from the wave. I always equate it to skiing because I was a skier too.
Mm-hmm.
Is you always want to be on your uphill edge. You want to lean into the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to lift your leading edge so it just side slips in. And if you do that and you just trust your paddle, that you can lean on your paddle, it's not a problem. And then I would go out there with no gear on there and surf.
I've got waves coming in from this, and I'm sitting here, and the wave's coming this way. I need to lean into that wave,
the wave, because the whole idea, because if you let the leading edge drop, it's going to catch. You get pitched towards the shore, and the kayak is coming down at the back of your head. So ideally, if you lean into the mountain, you lean into the wave, lift that leading edge. If you were to fall off, which you generally don't, you fall into the wave and the kayak washes away from you.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about getting hit by it.
Well, we're on
these were better boats for surfing. Now the boats nowadays, they're tough.
Well, we're on the beach. Then we get on the beach. I look back and there's these guys that had all these rental kayaks and they're wearing helmets. I go, why are they wearing helmets? It didn't take long to figure that out.
Yeah,
they were getting bombarded by their kayaks from the waves.
Oh, we used to always say that if you want some entertainment, go down to the beach with a 6-pack of beer, and when there's a big swell, and watch the rental kayakers.
Yeah,
it is just they just get destroyed.
They look like Marty Hughes when he jumped out there before he told to go out.
Yeah. So here's a magazine, Jim. I found you on the cover. I've kept this for a long time.
Oh wow, that's an oldie.
That's Kayak Fisherman magazine. I actually wrote an article for that once, but you're all over these magazines.
Yeah, I was back in the day.
Yeah.
That the guy in the white shirt there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Oh no, it's a different guy. Well, it looked like a friend of mine, but I think it might be somebody else.
There's a lot of stories in these, and I have every issue of these. I just can't find the one I wrote the article in. And but I loved it out there when I was there. But I just wanted to bring that up, that wave and that story where I fished with Jim Sammons back in the day. Didn't even know you were a legend. I just knew that here's a guy.
Well, I wasn't legendary yet.
Yeah. You became that legend, and so I followed you. All that time, and for me, guiding in Nebraska, I learned a lot. And so you are I am the result of what you taught me to be a guide. So thank you.
Awesome.
I got a new person. I got maybe a new person kind of gear question. I want to get into paddles here in a little bit, but so you fish in the obviously it's sunny. Every picture I see you have a really cool sun hat on. Is there a sun hat that you like better than other ones? I mean, you can shout out a brand here, or
Well,
is there a sun shirt that you like better than the rest of them?
NRS makes great stuff. I mean, I have
Okay.
a ton of NRS stuff. Of course, I've been through multiple sponsors over the years,
Yeah.
but I'm no longer sponsored by anybody because I'm not doing anything. But NRS makes some great outer gear, layers. They that's the nice thing is you can just find all that stuff now. My hat is actually you could almost say it's a one-off. I don't even think she makes them anymore. She was literally there was this lady here who lived here in San Diego, then moved to Hawaii, who would hand stitch these canvas hats.
Wow.
Who actually makes a really good hat is Shelta.
Shit.
Um, uh, Shelta. They it stays on your head in the windiest of conditions,
Hmm.
and it's super lightweight and it breathes. And I started wearing that a lot over the last few years. Problem is, it doesn't look as cool as my other hat.
Hmm. Hmm.
I liked my other
Wow.
hat,
Yeah,
but these
that's
are
cool.
definitely because my other one was quite heavy canvas.
Yeah.
But
And
it was a great hat.
nice.
I was
Okay.
kind of known for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You are. I knew who that in any picture. If you just look at the hat I know that's Jim Sammons. That's Jim Sammons.
Yeah.
I do want to shout out to our sponsors, though, Little Miami Outfitters, who makes fishing rods, Tourney X platform for tournaments, and then of course Chad Hoover's KBF. I want to thank those guys because they're helping sponsor these shows, helping us pay for the service and all that. So
That's
really,
awesome.
yeah, we appreciate that. Another question is, what would be your greatest fear on the water, Jim? Your,
I'm.
great, your greatest fear?
Oh, my greatest fear.
Yeah.
I have no fear. No.
Well, I believe that.
No, you know what? Honestly, as I get older, you become much more mortal.
Yeah.
When you're young, you're kind of bulletproof. When I was doing a lot of stuff, that's why I'm a safety guy. But some of the old photos you'll see of me, maybe not wearing a PFD, but I wear a PFD and I preach PFDs
Nice.
nonstop.
Good.
Um, the worst one is really dealing with either fog or high winds. And as you guys have probably seen, the wind we get here, which has been going on in Los Angeles, these Santa Ana winds,
Yeah.
they come up and they're blowing 60 miles an hour straight offshore. So they will get you. Now I have all the confidence in the world in my paddle ability. I can paddle.
Mhm.
I've paddled in some gnarly conditions and for hours on end without setting my paddle down. So I know I'm a strong or I used to be a strong paddler. I'm not so strong anymore.
Yeah.
But that wind can really get you. And I had a client with me. He was a young guy, and it was actually a father and son. And normally Santa Ana winds are predicted, and this one was not because I always pay attention to it. Where it go, I'll base where I'm going to go fish on how that wind is in the direction and everything else.
Mhm.
And the wind came up, and I'm like, okay, we got to start. We got to head in because we don't want to get pushed any farther out here.
Mhm.
And about that time, the kid starts getting seasick, and he is hurling. And I was like, okay, well, I've got to tow him.
Mhm.
And so that if you've ever towed anybody in a kayak, it's
Mhm.
not fun. It's not fun at all, particularly in those kind of conditions. And I had a friend of mine who was out there fishes off of a wave runner, and he came by and he goes, "Jim, you need any help?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I got a sick client here. If you could give us a tow." And he goes, "Okay, well, I got somebody else. I'm going to get them, and then I'll swing back around and get you." Because we had about 3 miles to paddle in,
Yeah.
and towing him, I was going half a mile an hour into
Wow.
the wind. So
Wow.
he tows somebody back into the beach. I see him coming. I'm like, "Oh, thank God." I'm dying.
Yeah.
And I see him, and then he turns and goes and gets somebody else.
Oh,
Yeah, oh, Nels, man, you're killing me.
Oh man.
So he went and rescued somebody else, then looped back out and got my client and towed him in.
Gee.
And he goes, Jim, he goes, I had to do it. The other guy was struggling. I know you're a strong paddler. I knew you would be fine,
Yeah.
even if you were pissed off at me for doing it. He goes, I knew you'd be fine in the big picture. So I had to rescue this other guy because he was really, really struggling.
Wow.
So the high winds coming up. I mean, I've been in a situation. We were out off of San Clemente Island on a mothership trip,
Mhm.
and we were just joking around, and we were paddling downwind,
Mhm.
and we were kind of racing, my buddies and I, to get back to the mothership, and we overshot it because the wind was blowing so hard. But not only that, the wind was blowing so hard, and again, we're paddling, so pedals are. I'm not a big pedal guy, but there are certain times pedals are pretty cool.
Mhm.
And this was one of those situations. It was very difficult to turn your kayak around because as soon as you got that stroke, that wind would hit your bow and push it back downwind.
Mm.
So it was funny because you were with a group of guys, and you know we knew we were fine, but it was like it showed that I had probably gone an extra mile past the boat before we get our boats turned around to head back to the mothership. It's crazy.
Wow.
Like I said, there's definitely, that's one time that those pedals, you don't have that effect on on the wind hitting your paddle or anything like that. You keep that forward momentum.
Mhm.
But I'm still a paddler. I mean, I still prefer paddling. I won't knock anybody for whatever they want to do
Mhm.
because they're all fun.
Yeah.
That's one thing I always say is like,
Yeah.
don't let anybody tell you how to have fun. If you're having fun,
Yeah.
I don't care if you got a motor. I don't care if you got pedals. I don't care what you're doing. If you're having fun and you're honest about it, and it's like, who cares? Have fun. It's a fun sport.
so you're talking about earlier. You had said we talked, and Omar just brought up the point about fears, and like when I started really diving into your story and reading some stuff, whereas that the tropical stuff is cool, but what really caught me, and you had talked about bears, was your experiences in Alaska. So take us off the beach of California and put us in Alaska for a minute. Like fishing with like my dream, my like if people ask me what would be my bucket fish trip, I would love to go up and just wade and catch big salmon in the river when they make their runs and basically fish with the bears. I would love to be able to do that. So, can you tell me a little bit about your experiences with fishing with the bears and what it was like up there?
Well, I haven't done a lot with the bears. I did a couple of years ago. It was actually, we weren't kayak fishing. We were just walking streams and look up and there's a bear right across
Hmm.
the river. I don't have a lot of interaction experience with bears. I just have an irrational fear of
Okay.
them. um,
I
in
was
Alaska,
thinking it like that movie, The Reverend. I was thinking like you had this Alaska grizzlies, but just yeah, tell us about Alaskan salmon
they're
fishing.
just such a big animal, such a big, powerful animal, and I don't know. Like I said, it's an irrational fear of bears because there aren't a lot of bears running around San Diego. But I tell you something that's pretty interesting is the very first year, and I had been to Alaska one time before this, but the very first year we were shooting our show, we shot in Florida, and I remember being there. And the guy we were fishing with is like, okay, well, we're going to paddle out to that island. We'll fish around there, and then we're going to paddle out over there. I'm like going, dude, that island is a long way away.
Hmm.
Are we really going to paddle out to that island? Not being used to the topography down in Florida and these mangrove islands. This thing was less than a mile away. But because they're so short, and you see an island and you're low, it's like it seems like it's a long way away, but it's actually not that far because it ain't that big. So we go from Florida, and our next shoot is in Alaska. And we go to Alaska, and I'm with, we were talking about Howard McKim earlier, and we're fishing with Howard, and he goes, I'm not feeling great. He goes, I'm going to paddle up to the beach and take a nap. And, because you're up in Alaska, you got 20 hours of sunlight, so you can have these really long days of fishing. It's like, okay, he's going to paddle up to this island, and Probably an hour and a half later, I'm like, well, where's Howard on this island? He's like, well, he's still paddling. He's still trying to get there because in Alaska, everything is so freaking big.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's enormous. And the fishing there is, I mean, I prefer the warm water pelagics and all that. But just for pure fishing, for your bottom fishing, rock fishing, halibut, lingcod are such a cool fish. The fact that we ate like kings every day, and the only thing we were paying for was our beer, and we were dropping crab pots for Dungeness crab, we were dropping shrimp pots for big spot prawns, and we were fishing. So you'd go and we'd have halibut, spot prawn, and crab for dinner, breakfast, lunch. I mean, it's simply an amazing place, and just so beautiful.
So obviously, being able to eat seafood all over the world. What if you could pick one dish, just one seafood dish? What's your favorite seafood, bro?
Well, it's one I can't catch, and I just had it for dinner 2 nights ago. Scallops.
Okay, that's mine.
Give me scallops. Give me a crab, lobster.
Now,
I said we do get lobster.
We used to grab those scallops off of docks in the private docks. Is that would you say they grew on docks, didn't they?
Those are oysters.
Oysters?
Yeah.
When you say you can't catch scallops, why is that? Or you just can't? Like, you can't, I know. How do people get scallops? Like, what's that?
Well, like I know there's diver scallops. They'll get them down to Florida. They dive for them. Yeah. Other places use a rake that rakes them up off the bottom.
All right.
That they're just a different thing. But I love scallops. But give me my California yellowtail, sashimi, hamachi, yellowtail collars are just wonderful. White sea bass, man, our white sea bass are absolutely delicious. And I'm a big catch and release guy, but there are certain fish that they need to die.
Here's a question on sea dogs.
Oh, sea lions.
Yeah.
And learn the difference. Somebody actually posted something about it. I've been searching this whole time to find a seal, and I finally saw seals. It's like those are sea lions. They're different. Sea lions, seals are not a big issue. Sea lions are. Back in the day, when I first was kayak fishing, sea lions didn't really have us figured out. Now you'll watch the sea lions follow the sport boats and the private boats. They'll follow around. As soon as somebody hooks a fish, sea lion dives down, and you're toast. But they didn't have kayaks figured out, so we could, as long as you kept your rod tip low, you don't want your rod tip high because they'll see it bent and then they'll come over.
Yeah.
The bad part about being in a kayak, obviously, is if the sea lions do get on you, you can't leave them. It's not like you can power up your boat and run away from them because they will follow you. That's why a lot of times you prefer to have a lot of guys on the water. At least that'll get the sea lions to spread out, because if there's not a lot of guys on the water, they will sit right under you and just wait for you. You can't put a bait in the water, and if you hook a better fish, they steal it. They are the devil. We hate them.
And
what's that?
La Jolla was full of them.
Oh, there are so many.
Yeah.
The only time I've been off my kayak in open water was because of a combination of a client and a sea lion. I had this client, we had caught some yellowtail super early in the morning, and it started to get a little bit foggy, and my client started to get seasick. So I'm like, okay, well, we got to head in. And instead of throwing the fish down inside my game bag and getting it all rank, I'm like, oh, it's still early. It's still cold out. I'll just leave them up on deck attached to my game clip. And my client paddled forward and dragged his trolling line across my kayak.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, stop. Let's clear this out. And so I go to grab his bait, which was like stuck onto the side of my boat. So I go to grab his bait, and he started paddling forward. And instead of being out of gear with the clicker on, which you want to do with live bait, he was in gear. So the hook went out of the fish and straight through the tip of my finger.
Oh man.
So I just jumped forward like, yeah, knocking the yellowtail into the water that are attached to a game clip attached to my boat. 2 seconds later, I'm swimming because a sea lion grabbed the yellowtail and flipped me over.
Wow.
So sent all my gear, all my rods down to the bottom in about 75 feet of water. Actually, very cool story there is I came back later that day because I marked it on my GPS with my sun and dive gear on my tandem. And I went and dove on them, couldn't find them anywhere. So I posted on my website back when we had forums. I posted on my website, I go, hey, if anybody happens to be in La Jolla, happens to snag some gear, I'd really appreciate it. One of them was a custom wrapped rod that my wife had gotten for me for our anniversary. So I go, if anybody happens, I'd really appreciate it. A couple days later, on my forums, a guy posts, he goes, how, and I said this was years ago because I've been married 38 years, and this was I think it was my 16-year anniversary or something. He goes, how could a scavenger pirate keep a fishing rod that says "Happy Anniversary Jim" on it?
Oh man. Oh wow.
He goes, I left them for you at Mitch's surf shop. He goes, he found them all wrapped in kelp. He found 3 rods.
Man.
And he gave them all back, didn't ask for a thing.
Oh,
wow. I left a reward for him at the surf shop, but he just left him at the surf shop and said, here you go. I'm like, man, that's so cool. He goes, it was something to do. So he was out there diving.
Wow. Here's another question from Michael Thomas. Have you fished?
I have not. I've not fished for Goliath grouper. I assume you're going with
Creepers, groupers, Michael. It's groupers.
I have not. We've talked about it a few times back when I was shooting the show, and most of what I saw just didn't seem like it was that cool to me. I mean, it was just getting up underneath a bridge, and most of the guys who were trying to do it were attaching themselves to a boat anyway, because it was the only way they could keep themselves out of the structure. So I've got some big other Gulf grouper down in Baja, just off structure. But yeah, those are tough fish. Got a lot of amberjack and off structure.
What would you like? What do you like to use most, live bait or lures?
If you want to increase your odds of a good fish, live bait. It's just for in certain places, like for the billfish, because you can just keep trolling and cover water. For us here in La Jolla, the live bait is such a better way to go. But I mean, let's face it, there is nothing better than top water. Is that your guys' audio or mine that keeps?
I don't know. I keep hearing it too. It's not.
I haven't heard anything.
But yeah, there's nothing better than top water. There's nothing better than being down in Panama and throwing poppers, for the rooster fish or the cubera or for tuna. I mean, there's nothing better than top water than pop waters. And you're going to do that all day or top water for tarpon. There's nothing better. I mean, a lot of times we'll fish live bait just so we could get some fish on film and then switch over to lures. And, I'm very good friends with Patrick Zabeel, so I've had an opportunity to fish so many of his great lures over the years. And, I mean, I love fishing calico bass. I mean, you said you're from San Diego or from California. So calico bass are one of my favorite. And, that's 100% lure fishing.
Yeah, here, just a second. 1 second. You keep talking.
It's soft plastics in the kelp. Oh, there you go.
Oceanside, 15 years old.
Wow.
And I don't know what I got on there. I got on there some rockfish. I got a calico on there on the bottom, a couple calico bass. But I would sell my fish to the Vietnamese refugees. They would buy them from me, and that's how I supported my fishing habit.
totally illegal. But,
who's going to bother a little kid on the docks?
Marty's Fish Market.
Yeah. They flock to me, and I'd sell them, and then that's
well, yeah, you're the only buddy down there selling fish on the beach.
And believe it or not, I'd go to the pier, and sometimes I'd go buy me a smoked bonita and eat it.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I took those charter boats. It was $8.50. I still remember that.
We need to send you a buzz. We need to send you a buzz bait, Jim, down there, one of them crocodile head knockers. You can go down here and catch it. Be one of the first people to catch one on a head knocker down there.
It's actually pretty fun. Is you get some of these traditionally freshwater lures and then take them out to the salt. It's they still work. It's like guys are throwing A-rigs for spotted bay bass here, and
I've seen
a lot of the top water stuff. It's so much fun.
What
I think is the best tasting saltwater fish?
Joshua Booth. There you go.
My personal favorite fish is wahoo. I mean, it's just wahoo is so good. But then then you get to the lighter stuff, like I said, the white sea bass and halibut. If you've never had opa, it is phenomenal, and just a crazy big fish. But it's really good. We have a fish market that gets them here, and it's super delicious. Tastes like butter.
Jim, give us a little bit of juice right here. So if you were gonna pick, like, I want Jim Sammons' favorite beach, like one place. If you could take one last trip, right, and it's just going to be you, the beach, and God, and you're going to go out there and just and spend let's say your last day. What are you gonna? Where are you gonna go, bro?
Oh, that is so hard. That is so hard. People always ask me, like, what is my favorite place I have fished? It's like, it's so hard because it's my favorite for this kind of fish, and then this is my favorite for this kind of fish.
Oh yeah.
I mean, nostalgic wise, I would go back down to the East Cape, Southern Baja.
Yeah.
I mean, I guided there for such a long time, and I have so many of my most memorable catches there. Some of my biggest rooster fish, my first marlin, most of my marlin, my biggest Dorado. I mean, I got a 62-pound Dorado. I love there. I love Panama. And if there's any place that's got Panama dialed in, it's Los Buzos.
Yeah. I was going to mention that.
They've got it dialed in as a kayak fishing place.
Yeah. And
they're so good at what they do.
Yeah. And that's is that Robert Field down there too?
Robert does it. And that their whole setup just works.
Yeah. They have a website.
Like I said, the east coast of Costa Rica for the tarpon, Silver King Lodge, just absolutely phenomenal. Puerto Rico is just great tarpon fishing. All over Canada. I mean, God, if for freshwater fishermen, for the pike, the muskie, the smallmouth, I mean, there's so much good fishing in Canada. I've had so many wonderful trips. I was lucky in the fact that my producer of my show was based in Canada. So we're obligated to shoot at least one show there every year. We did a trip in Algonquin Park on the Petawawa River. Was a 7-day paddle trip downriver. So camping out of our kayaks for 7 days. And it's basically considered like a 3-day paddle trip, but we stretched it to 7 because we were fishing the whole time. Run rapids, fish at the bottom of the rapids, fish at the top of the next rapid, run the rapid. Just so many great memories from that trip. The total isolation. We were there. We arrived. All the trees were green. By the time we pulled out of the river a week later, everything was orange and yellow. So the leaves changed while we were there. It was so stunningly beautiful. I fished on the Arctic Circle, Great Bear Lake, water so pure you could just drink it right out of the lake. Didn't have to worry about boiling it. Sight casting for lake trout because the water's so clear. Just simply an amazing place. The Amazon. I mean, like I said, I've fished a lot of great places. The
You've been
Nile.
down on the Amazon?
Yeah. Peacock bass. Unfortunately, that trip for us wasn't the best fishing wise because it was high water. And if you get the high water, the fish literally go into the trees. So you don't have the shot at the big ones so much. But a lot of fish, piranha, the big peacocks, all kinds of fish. I said we did the Nile perch on the Nile, Lake Victoria. So
Wow.
I've been to a lot of cool places. Been very, very lucky. So it's really hard to nail down a single place.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this: Baja is still probably one of the most affordable places if you want to go someplace and have kind of an exotic trip and have it still be reasonably priced. Is down to Baja. And when you go down to Mag Bay, it's super inexpensive, and the volume of striped marlin there is nuts. Like I said, the East Cape with the roosters and the roosters in it, and I mean there's certain spots down there where you can catch Dorado from the beach because the water's so deep, so close to shore. It's just much less. I mean, like a trip to Alaska is amazing, but Alaska's expensive. I mean, I can do a trip down to Baja for a third the price.
What kind of price you talking about? 1,000, 2,000?
Yeah, it depends on it depends on what level you're doing it at, because there's the more resorty type places. Unfortunately, the really, really cool old Mexico places that I used to go to are gone. The place I used to guide, Punta Colorado, is no longer there. Rancho Leonero, which was just an amazing small boutique lodge, it closed down last year. So it's becoming more resorty, but it's still amazing. It's still Mexico, and I love the Baja. People have fear of the Baja, the feel of Mexico, but just don't be stupid.
So,
another great destination in Baja is Cedros Island.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like calico, and I love calico bass fishing, the calico bass fishing at Cedros Island is just ridiculous. And then add into that big yellowtail, white sea bass, halibut, and during the right time of the year, tuna, dorado, and you're on an island off the coast of Baja, so it's pretty remote, not super high pressured.
And is it safe for tourists down there? Is it safe for tourists?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said, don't be stupid. Don't do stupid things. I'm not going into the hood here. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not going and buying drugs anywhere.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Stay with other people. It's always better if you're with a group of other people, maybe multiple vehicles if you're doing a drive down trip. I mean, I did a drive down trip with a couple of friends. I mean, my co-pilot was my daughter, and I felt completely safe having just me and my daughter in my truck driving down there for a week. And it's helps if you speak Spanish.
So you said staying safe, and so. Let's say I was to leave and I was going on a trip to California or Florida or something, and though I want to support guides and do that, but let's just say I don't have the really time to do it, but I'm going to grab my rod and reel. There's a possibility I could get a small kayak, but I just wanted to go out and go fish. Is that possible? Can I do that? And how would you approach something like that?
Well, you definitely got to have your own kayak. For Mexico anyway, if you're driving down there, unless you're going to one of the resorts that might have them.
Yeah.
We had a whole fleet of kayaks down at the lodges I worked with, but again, that was years ago, and those places closed down.
Yeah.
Cedros Island, they have a fleet of kayaks. But that is one of the cool things. If you were doing a drive down trip, and like I said, I would suggest you have a couple of guys at least, or a few guys, so you have multiple vehicles in case somebody has vehicle issues. And just anywhere you can stop. If you see kelp or you see structure and it's a safe launch for surf wise, man, there's the fishing
Okay.
all along the Baja coast is so good on the inside or the outside,
Mhm.
whether you're on the Pacific side or in the Sea of Cortez. I mean, there's just wonderful, wonderful fishing. And
Yes.
like I said, you get down there into the warmer water, down to southern Baja, you get the opportunity for those pelagics. And like I said, the roosters and jacks and all that. And it's just,
Mm.
What
I
if you
love the
didn't
Baja.
want to kayak and all you were going to do was go down to the beach and you had your rod, you were leaving the hotel? What is something you would grab and maybe have the chances in catching a fish with?
Oh, for sure. Surf fishing, or off the beach or off the rocks.
Mhm.
Definitely, again, the calico bass, the sheep's head, um, soft plastics. And if you have some kind of a weedless soft plastic as you're thrown into the kelp and into the rocks, the Patrick Sebeles, his dart spin is just deadly. But yeah, I mean, I have a friend who regularly does just that. He'll actually go out there and float tube along just in spots he can put it in, and just gets him out a little bit farther into the nooks and crannies. And because
Mm.
those calico bass, I mean, they're tough fish, and they might
Oh,
be, you know, they might be in that much water.
yeah.
Would I be able to bring one of my bass rods or would I have to
Oh, for
upgrade?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No, well, a swim bait rod. So a heavy bass rod. And with 50-pound braid and probably 30-40 pound fluoro.
Mhm.
I got to ask
Because
you while we're on that, who makes your favorite braid, Jim? What's your
I
favorite
use
braid?
cigar. I use cigar thread lock. I love the hollow core, at least for my heavier stuff. I love the hollow core. I do all knotless connections, the loop to loop connections, for my bigger stuff. Yeah.
So you tie a
Um,
lot of leader knots. What's your go-to leader knot?
well, like I said, I'm doing for that stuff. That's all loop to loop, because you're making knotless connections. Um, so it's all sliding your fluorocarbon into the braid
Oh, okay.
and then serve it. So it's locked in there. It's the Chinese finger trap kind of
Okay.
deal.
Mhm.
But then you serve it so it's locked in, and you whip a loop into it, and it's a knotless whipped loop. And so then you just do a loop to loop connection. And so
How
I
long
can
does it
put,
take you to tie one of them from start to finish?
when I'm doing them, and I usually, like during football season or something, I'm sitting there with my rig and tying them in front of the TV. Probably 10 minutes or less, because you're gluing them, and they're fairly long. I'll make a 20-foot leader, so then I can just lop it off and whittle it down till I get to about 4 feet, and then it's like, okay, now it's time for a new one.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
the knots I tend to use, other than that, when I'm actually tying, is an RP knot. Um, I'm better with that than the Albright. It works for me. Or uni to uni, uni to uni works really well for me, and I can tie that in my sleep. It really comes down to that, for knots. I'm not a big knot guy, and I know a lot of guys are, but
Yeah.
it's the knot that I've been tying my whole life. I do an improved clinch a lot of times, because
Yeah.
it's just like I can
Yeah.
tie that in my sleep with my eyes closed and behind my back.
Yeah.
I do a lot of loop knots for live bait fishing. I generally use a loop knot, so you get better motion of your bait, and the hook swings free.
Hmm.
And my Mexican pongero, Alonso Castro Maclees,
So
taught me
you say
that
San
forever
Diego? I
ago.
use the San Diego Jam knot.
Yeah, San Diego
So
Jam. Yeah,
that originated there. I don't know if that
yeah.
originated in
I
California
call
or
it
not.
I call it the Ben Milliken knot. Hey, so Rusty Robertson, my neighbor here, do you ever fish inland ponds or lakes?
Not here.
Okay.
California, you gotta pay your launch permit, your lake permit, your this permit
Mm.
to go on anything freshwater. Where saltwater, I mean, you gotta have your fishing license, but
Yeah.
saltwater's always been free.
Yeah.
And I can go down to San Diego Bay, and that's usually my. I always say, when I go to San Diego Bay, I go catching, not necessarily to go fishing. because I can rely on it.
Yeah.
And I can go there, catch a bunch of spotted bay bass. They pull harder than any freshwater fish, and they're just super fun. And on a good day, I might catch 100.
Yeah, that's.
You know,
I used to fish Shelter Island Pier when I was a kid, and I actually had the Zodiac boat with a 5 horsepower motor on it when I was 15 there.
nice. My picture of me downstairs, my very first fish, spotted bay bass on Shelter Island Pier.
There you go.
Yeah. So you said it was free. You said fishing was. You said something about not fishing so much inland because that costs money. But fishing in the ocean or on the beach, is that a launching fee or is that a fishing fee? Like, what's the back to
on
that.
On the ocean? There's no fees. It's all free.
Yeah.
You don't have to even get a license. Like,
well, you have to have a fishing license.
Yeah.
But after that, it's free. There's no, even to launch my boat, there's no launch fee.
Yeah, like going to the beach. Just go to the beach.
Yeah, so fishing off the saltwater for me was always free. Huh. So it became my go-to, and I love. They just pull harder. You know, I've got a lake. I live a mile and a half away from Lake Murray, and I've been here for 28 years, and I think I've fished on it once.
Yeah.
What's your biggest largemouth?
I don't know. I've got some decent ones, but I don't freshwater fish that much. So, I mean, I think I got like an 8-9 pounder. I don't think I've got a double digit.
Yeah. Have you ever had crappie?
Huh? I don't think I've ever caught a crappie, except when I did when I was a little kid. My biggest.
You send me some seafood and I'll send you some crappie. We'll do a switch there.
My biggest freshwater fish.
Yeah.
9.5 foot sturgeon.
I seen the picture of that, dude.
Yeah. 9.5.
You caught a couple of them, didn't you? Didn't you catch a couple of them?
We got a few. But yeah, that was up on the Fraser River in British Columbia.
Man,
that was a wild trip, because that's so much water. What a learning experience that was. Because fishing in that much current, but you need to be anchored up. So you had to have a breakaway anchor in case something was coming down river at you, or if you had to follow a fish. We first did it, and we came up with this whole setup with the breakaway and then floats, and we broke away, and our floats just went, ooh, because there was so much water pressure. It just sent them in the current straight down. So we had to snag them, get them back up, and then switch to these really, really big floats that would stay above the water. That was such a crazy, like I said, just a wild learning experience. And that was one of the cool things about my show is, besides just I met so many amazing people. I've got friends all over the world now. I mean, good friends in Sweden and Germany and like I said, Puerto Rico, and just all over. But learning different ways to fish and showing them my ways of fishing, and just trying different things. And but like I said, that Fraser River one was really when we weren't going up there. Generally speaking, what we would do on the show, we would go fish with a guide. And then I highly recommend anybody fish with a guide, because they can cut your learning curve. And even if you're on a 7-day trip, have a guide for the first day. At least you can kind of get you dialed in.
Right.
But that Fraser River trip, we were with a fishing guide, but he didn't know the first thing about kayak fishing, and particularly fishing in that kind of water in a kayak.
Gee.
And so we had to figure it out. And like I said, it was just a very, very cool learning experience, but sketchy. It was the volume of water that goes down the Fraser River. I think it's like the only undammed river in British Columbia. It's like the only, or the biggest, I don't know, but we ran up river in a jet boat in these just massive whirlpools that they would suck my kayak down like that. It just absolutely crazy.
Wow.
So just to set anchor in the kayak and then getting the anchor out and getting it locked in onto your boat in time before you were sideways and got washed out or anything. It was just crazy. It was very, very cool. Super cool learning experience.
Isn't that
sketchy?
Yeah, isn't that the thrill though when you don't it's the unknown and you get out there in your kayak in the water you're fishing and you
Oh
don't
yeah,
and like when I went to Susquehanna River the first time, I'm looking at it going, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to go out there. What's going to happen?" And I get out there and it's just unbelievable, to experience that with that current.
yeah, yeah, and just there's so many different things. I mean, I've been on places that had so much tidal flow
Mm,
that you're trying to paddle and you're basically paddling on a treadmill.
gee.
Um, we were talking about Alaska. One of the cool things about Alaska is I caught what I considered a decent sized halibut. It wasn't one of the barn door giant ones, but it was a good size halibut. And I'm watching it come up because the water's beautiful and clear. I'm watching my halibut come up, and I'm like, this doesn't look right. I just keep bringing it up and getting it closer, and I can see the shape of my halibut. And underneath it, I'm like, why is it still so brown underneath it? This barn door halibut
Gee.
followed it all the way up. So where my halibut's coming up, it looks like the bottom is coming up with it.
Gee.
Oh man,
You
that's
know,
scared me, bro.
it's just absolutely crazy. And the unexpected. And that's why the salt water, the unexpected about the salt water, the
Yeah.
picture there that we showed earlier
Yeah.
of the orcas.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was telling a story to a friend of mine the other day. He was asking me about sea creatures, and I was telling him about my interaction one day with a blue whale.
Oh my gosh.
Went right between my friend and I. You want to talk about a massive, massive animal. I mean, they are huge and they are blue. I mean, they got the name blue whale for a reason. They are super blue and they motor. We see gray whales here all the time. Very regular. I mean, it's still, and it never gets old. It's always cool to see them. It's always cool to see the big pods of dolphin. Um, but the gray whales tend to meander. They just cruise down the coast. Just these blue whales motor. They are going so fast,
Mm.
and then you see humpback whales that breach so often.
Yeah.
And they're slapping their tails and their pectorals on the surface. And said
Unreal.
this photo here with the orca. Funny
Yeah.
story with
Yeah.
the orca.
Yeah.
So we are off an island off of we're in Ketchikan, Alaska, and camera boat. So I got my videographer and a still photographer. Still photographer is running the boat, and I see these two pods of orcas cruising along. One, say 100 yards inside of us. Another pod probably 300 yards inside of us. So I told my radio over to my camera guy, I go, hey, I'm going to paddle in so we can get a better shot of them cruising by in front of me.
Hmm.
And it's sketchy.
I'll bet.
It's an orca. It is a killer whale.
Wow.
And so I start paddling in, and like I said, they're just cruising, just dorsals out of the water, just cruising. And they get, this distance from us, which was probably 50 yards.
50 yards, yeah.
This pod and the pod on the inside all start to breach at the same time.
Oh.
It was like we're letting you know that we're here and that we're bigger than you. And so they breached a couple of times. Like my still photographer got this photo and another really, really cool photo. He's running the boat. So we see this, that they're coming. He turns the wheel of the boat to line himself up for the perfect shot, which put my videographer's shot right at the back of his head. So all we got on video was the whale splashing. We didn't get this on video at all.
Oh man.
Because the still photographer angled the shot for himself instead of the videographer.
Man,
we were all ready to kill him.
Would those things attack you?
No. I mean, I guess recently, the last couple of years, they've been attacking boats. But there's nobody has ever officially been killed by an orca.
Have you ever accidentally snagged like a whale or like a? I always think about that. I'm like,
I know guys who have snagged whales. I know guys who have snagged dolphin. I actually client with me in La Jolla. We get these pods of common dolphin.
Yeah.
And they're the little bit smaller dolphin. They're not the big bottlenose, but there will be a pod of several hundred of them, and they'll just come ripping through and jumping and all that. And I'm with a client. We're trolling live baits for yellowtail, and he's all, "Should I bring my bait in?" I'm like, "Nah, don't worry about it. They never eat it. They're very smart. They never eat our bait. I know guys in Florida, you have to deal with dolphins, but our dolphins do not take our bait."
Yeah.
So I go, "Don't worry about it. They'll swim right by it." 2 seconds later,
Oh no.
He damn near got spooled.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, we got to lock that thing down and break it off.
Gee. Wow. Anything else, Trey? You got?
man, I'm in awe. This has been. I could sit and talk to you all night, Jim.
I can talk. I mean, I haven't had a chance to talk kayak fishing in such a long time. Like I said, I've been in such a funk and not wanting to talk about it and not be around it.
Well, isn't this great therapy?
It is. It's making me feel happy. It's making me feel happy talking kayak fishing. There's so much love for it, and I love sharing it. And like I said, I love teaching it. I love teaching people to paddle. The joy of paddling.
Yeah.
It's so lost, you know. What I've said this before is like something that peddlers and motor guys and everything just can never really get, never really appreciate, is the quiet and the glide of a good paddling boat and a good carbon fiber paddle, and just that boat gliding through the water silent. You know, there's not the clunk, 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 or the electric motor, any of that. Gliding over. I mean, I'm sure you remember how thick our kelp beds can be.
Oh, yeah.
And I can glide right over the top of it, not think about it. Yeah. And now I mentioned earlier that, you know, I kind of came from touring boats, the long, really fast ones. I jumped in one when my father-in-law passed away. I jumped into his touring boat, and I hadn't been in one in a long time. And because it was an 18.5-foot Kevlar boat. And talk about a rocket ship. I mean, you feel the boat jump forward with every stroke. And it's so cool. I mean, just like I said, just that glide and gliding in on a wave, riding the swell.
Oh yeah.
You just don't get with the big boats nowadays. And I said, whatever works for you. And obviously these bigger boats are getting a lot more people on the water, which is awesome. But if the one thing I would say along those lines though is I always hear it. What people would say is like, wow, I got to have pedals. I could never do that with a paddle. I could never go that far with a paddle. Mm-hmm. I can't pedal that far. You know, if you learn proper paddling technique, it involves so much of your body. Mm-hmm. You know, your legs are flexing with every stroke. It's so you're doing this with your pedaling. Well, I'm doing that as I'm paddling. And that's helping with that torso rotation and pushing and gliding through the bottom hand. Yeah. And it just becomes this rhythm. Yeah. And it just glides. And it's, like I said, it's so quiet. Mm-hmm. But you got to learn how to paddle. Yeah. And I've seen kayak fishing experts that don't know how to paddle. Yeah. You know, they because they got into kayak fishing for the fishing. And again, all the respect for them. That's fine. But they never learned proper paddling. They're paddling with their arms. You know, it's all here, and it's here. You know, it's that top hand. It's pushing with the top hand, guiding through. It's flexing those legs. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think, oh, my hands get sore, or my hands get cramped, or I get calluses. My hands are like slick. I mean, I hold my paddle with my hand open. It's nice and relaxed.
Yeah.
There's not that stress,
Yeah.
but also the maneuverability you have with the paddle, learning those strokes, doing a draw stroke, uh, just that little bit of a draw, just being able to pull yourself up to somebody sideways instead of, I've watched guys in pedal boats do this ning, 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 trying to get to somebody doing this giant circle. And it's like just a couple strokes.
Trey, is that you?
Yeah, it is me. I'm with a motor sitting there with my remote control.
Hey, and I've got a torpedo motor on my Blue Sky.
Uh-huh.
I love that thing. It is so much fun. So there's no right or wrong answer. If it's getting you on the water, it's just like it's just. I wish more people appreciated the paddling aspect of it, and a good paddle. And I wish the industry still, because there are no real paddlers boats out there anymore.
No.
The last one may have been the Kraken, which was my signature boat with Jackson Kayak. And unfortunately, when it came out, was right about the time that everybody was going, I have to have pedals. Mm-hmm. And heck, now it seems like everybody's skipped over pedals completely. And now everybody just wants motors, which kind of takes away from why we got into it, or I got into it in the beginning, was I didn't have money. I needed easy access. Again, I wanted to be able to launch at those places that boats don't get to. Carrying my kayak over my head down some stairs. I basically did 2 trips. I carried my kayak down in one trip, and I carried my paddle and my fishing gear and stuff down on the next trip. And
so a couple mentions here, just to go back in our question thread.
Well, there's one here from Jordan Rhodes I'd like to ask. Landlocked guy about fishing the ocean. He lives here in Nebraska, right by me.
I would say be very aware of whether or not you get seasick.
Yeah,
a lot of clients get seasick.
Yeah,
I had a lot of clients get seasick, and I would tell them, get the patch. The patch works. And then they would come out and they would get seasick, and I go, well, did you get the patch or take it? And they're like, no, I didn't think I'd get seasick in a kayak.
Yeah.
You will, particularly if it gets foggy, particularly if you get a backlash.
Yeah.
If you get your head in your hands and you're dealing with something here and you're not staying focused on the horizon, that you will get seasick. So I hate for people to ruin their day by being seasick, because once you're seasick in a kayak, you got no choice. You got to go in. You're not going to get over it.
Yeah, I took Dramamine, I think, when I went with you, but I've only been seasick once in my life, and it was on a deep sea trip. Other than that, though, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I never had the affliction.
Yeah.
I've been sick once on a boat, and it had a lot more to do with booze.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a wide open question, is, what would you say to somebody? I'd say start out slow. Bays are definitely the way to go. Fishing the flats in Florida, Louisiana. Oh my gosh, Louisiana! I didn't even touch on how good of a fishery Louisiana is.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Oh my goodness, the tuna offshore, the redfish, the trout. Oh my gosh, I talk about another place that has kayak fishing dialed in. That was Louisiana, down at Pack Kayaks down Port of Cheyenne. They have got kayak fishing dialed in. There's the Blue Sky.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about seasickness in those kind of waters and the flats, but the open ocean type stuff, have the right equipment, PFDs, PLBs. Personal locator beacon is a huge one that you should carry. VHF radios, because things can go wrong. Things go wrong in a hurry.
Yeah.
And, the main thing is just always being safe. Like I said, there's a lot of old photos of me out there without a PFD on. There's certainly nothing even close to current, other than we did a trip to Panama and our PFDs didn't show up. It was like, well, we're not going to not fish. So we fish without our PFDs on. But, getting a PFD on, getting a proper paddling PFD that is comfortable enough that you will wear it snug. That's the biggest one is know how to self-rescue.
Yeah.
I had a guy come out with me, experienced kayak angler, flipped the kayak with hatches open, didn't know how to self-rescue. It's like, you are not an experienced kayak fisherman. You told me you were, but you're really not. Yeah. Because if you don't know how to self-rescue, that's got to be second nature. You need to be able to get out of the water, onto your kayak, things buttoned up like that. It's not that difficult, but it does take practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who's any kind of deep water. And for other people, I know this time of year, the water's cold. You were talking, Trey, before we started the show about the right base layers, having the right base layers, not cotton, having the right outer gear, whether it's dry suits, and it's all based on, your location, on how extreme your temperatures are. If you're wearing lightweight breathable waders, which I really like, make sure you're wearing that wading belt, paddling jacket over the top, so it is more of a closed system, and always that PFD. Never overestimate your abilities. Never underestimate Mother Nature, because she will kick your ass.
Yeah. What's a wading belt?
Wading belt is usually a fairly wide nylon belt. Some are even wider, that you wear over your waders, and it keeps water. If you go in the water, it keeps the water from going down the top and into your legs.
And I use the Coca-Tat one. It has the Velcro.
Yes,
so it's kind of in place of that. And then
same animal. Yeah, it's just a matter of keeping that nice and snug around your waist, so you have that opportunity to get back in your kayak quickly. Yeah. You're not going to be flailing around. I did a video 100 years ago called "The Waders of Death," because everybody says you're going to sink in waders. It's not true. You don't sink, because water inside your waders doesn't weigh any more than water outside your waders. But it does inhibit your ability to swim. But what actually happens if you go in the water, because I did it without a wading belt just to prove it. What happens, lightweight breathable waders, you go into the water pressure actually compresses around your legs and actually keeps water from going in. Now, if you get tumbled around and surf and you're having to swim and all that, that changes the whole program. And that's where that wading belt, you really need to keep it from going down the top and going down your legs. But it is a safe thing to do, but it is a system. It is the whole package. If you're out there in waders, those big rubber waders with boots and no wading belt, you can't maneuver in them. It's more that. And then you're certainly not going to lift that water up to get back into your boat, because that's the whole thing, is keeping the water out of your legs so you can get back in your boat quickly. Right. And so having that right system of clothing, plus knowing that self-rescue, knowing how to flip your boat back over its upside down quickly, and knowing how to self-rescue quickly. It shouldn't be like, oh, I need to think about this now that I'm in the water.
I think a lot of times, and for me, I'm going to be full transparent. I've never taken my kayak and have taken everything off of it and went out and flipped it and tried to get back on it. I just think that if it happens, I'll be able to do that, because it seems pretty easy. I know that's how a lot of people probably think, and how that person that said he was a advanced kayak fisherman that was with you probably thought he could do.
I'm going to say this as harshly as I can,
and I want you to.
I feel so strongly about it. There's a lot of dead people who felt the same way.
Right. Okay.
It's not second nature. And the thing is, for me, if I go in the water, in my head, I know that I can self-rescue like that. I'm not going to hit the water and panic and go, oh no, how do I flip my boat over? I haven't practiced this. Where do I grab on my boat? Do I have to go over the boat to flip it? Do I need to go under the boat to flip it? Do I go on from the bow? Do I have so much gear in front in this area that I can't even get over that to get in my boat? Where is my best option to get into my kayak?
Mm-hmm.
Is it crawling up the bow? Is it crawling up the stern? Is it going up from the side? So, but it should just be second nature. So if it happens, it's like, oh crap, I'm in the water. Boom, I'm out of the water. Because unfortunately, people die doing this sport every year.
Mm-hmm.
And see,
And
I've
it's
always
usually
thought,
for reasons just like that.
and this is what I love this learning, like being able to say, like, my thought was I would fall off the kayak, it would flip, and I would be, because I don't get that far away from shore, I would be able to just swim my kayak to shore. I know that's not like, that's just
But
what went through my head. I'm sure it
we're
goes through other people's.
talking this time of year where the water is cold. You're going to get hypothermic very quickly. Your arms stop working properly. Your legs stop working properly because
Right.
your body is trying to protect your internal organs and your heart, and you become exhausted very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just knowing that. I mean, like I said, I've watched people teach people how to flip their boat, and I'm like, that's not how I'm doing it.
How would
But
you do it? How would you do it?
and again, it comes down to what the boat is.
Oh yeah,
Because
you got
all boats are going to be a little bit different. But
right.
I see a lot of guys go over the top of the boat and then pull it back.
Mm-hmm.
Problem with that is you're pulling it back and it's coming back at you. So it comes back towards your head.
Mm-hmm.
My preference has always been, now my boats are not the giant wide boat, so it's maybe not as difficult. But my preference has always been to reach under the boat, grab something, the strap like on the far side of my seat, and pull that towards me and push the boat away from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do this.
Yeah.
And the boat's flipped over, and then I'm at the side of the boat. I'm in the proper position to just then jump back up on the boat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's got to be, like I said, the main thing is that it's second nature.
Yeah.
So you go out there in your dry suit or your paddling gear, your proper paddling gear, and with a PFD on, because the PFD adds a whole different element to it. Trying to get that PFD, the bulk of a PFD,
Mm-hmm.
over the side of the boat can be difficult. So you got to figure out what works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the method that works the best for you? Because I've literally had guys who do not have the physical strength to get themselves over the side of the boat. So what we will do is we'll go and get to the bow of the boat, and you literally get your arm up on it, and you literally submerge the bow of the boat, and you shimmy up onto the bow.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do a surf safety and paddle skills class,
Mm-hmm.
and we would go through all this stuff. I'd teach them how to handle their boat in the surf, how to safely navigate the surf zone, how to surf the boat, how to survive the surf, but then self-rescues, assisted rescues. You know what's a great thing to learn how to do? An assisted rescue. Learn how to save somebody else.
I've got 4.
You saved 4 people?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've
Yeah,
saved
well,
I've saved a few. But I've watched people do it, and they struggle, and they damn near put themselves in the water.
yeah.
Learning the proper techniques.
I've got one where he was swimming, but he was under for over 2 minutes. He's alive today. But we had one in Omaha about 3 or 4 years ago. Guy was like about 400-pound guy. He's a gigantic, little tiny Pelican kayak, and he got up on a log and it pushed him over. I was teaching a safety class actually on shore that day, and we got him. His head was, it was 40-something degree water. He's in t-shirts and shorts. But it was a nice spring day, you know. But EMTs came, but he's lucky we saw him. Otherwise, he would have just gone under. No life jacket on. Yeah.
Does somebody have a dog?
That's me.
I have 5.
Wow.
I have 5 dogs. So yeah, I love my dogs.
That's a big part of it. Yeah, dogs are huge for me too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love it. But yeah, that's kind of my rant on
Okay, good.
safety, self rescues, and that's a very Penguin Outfitter there or Outdoors made a very good point there. Learn different ways of doing it. I mean, like I said, learn different ways of doing it. Learn how to help somebody else as well.
Yeah.
You know, how do you drain a flooded kayak? Because you get a guy like that was with me that flipped with his hatches open. Do you carry a bilge pump?
Yeah.
Most of the time, you only need a bilge pump when you don't have one.
Yeah.
Have a hand bilge pump. If you don't have a bilge pump, do you know how to empty a flooded boat? It's not easy, but it's proper technique. So, like I said, learn how to save somebody else.
Yeah. Okay.
Midwestern Boys is here. They said, "Hey, what's up, Marty Hughes? My sisters showed up tonight. Sam Dillinger showed up. Chad Hoover, Chad Davison. Just a
There's a
ton
lot
of people, man, showed up
That's
tonight
awesome. Love it.
to hear your
How you doing,
stories.
Chad? I haven't talked to Chad in a while.
there's a lot.
Josh Booth, Penguin Outdoors, Jennifer Solberg. So
there's a lot of people on. There's been a lot of people here, and there'll be a lot of people that'll be watching it afterward too. So
I hope I didn't bore him for almost 2 hours.
yeah, well, we can kind of wind her down here, but Jim, the main thing though is we really appreciate you coming on and telling your story. It helps for people to see where this came from, your passion, how you're a paddler, and that's what you like to do, and it's fun. And there's nothing wrong with the way you do things. Anybody does anything on the water is just getting out there having fun.
Exactly. Have fun.
But you have absolutely lived the dream, man.
I've been very lucky, and if I got to thank anybody, it's my wife. My wife has been 100% supportive of everything I've done. She's been earning the money because God knows I wasn't making much money doing this, but I was having a lot of fun and I was traveling the world. But she had all the money and she supported me and supported what I did, and I could have never ever have had the life I've had without her. And like I said, we've been married 37 years now, and hope for a lot longer.
Yeah, you bet, man. You bet. Now, do you think that you would guide again? Would you guide again?
Very selectively.
Yeah.
I mean, I guided for a long time. I put a lot of people in kayaks.
Yeah.
Physically, I am back to where I think I can get out there and start kayaking and doing that myself.
Yeah.
But to schlep kayaks and deal with clients and gear and that, I don't know that I have that in me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Not getting any younger, and
so just
I'd like to get back to. I mean, if it was at all possible, I'd love to get back to the TV show thing.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if that's possible anymore, just because of the way things have gone and having to reestablish all sponsors and everything.
Right.
Right. I still work with Jackson Kayak and that, but it's life, life. And like I said, I'm not getting any younger. So, but I sure love doing it. And I really appreciate this opportunity to come out here and share this and to kind of reignite. I mean, I feel reinvigorated.
Nice.
To talk about getting, and I really appreciate that. It's been super fun.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you ever followed how we progressed in the Midwest at all, but that's kind of how it grew here. Was I would take people out and guide them, and then they would do it, and then they'd tell other people, and then we started the tournament thing, and now the tournament thing's crazy, and it's just everywhere. But there's so many different trails, and there's some fracturing as well. But at the same time, I really do believe in the long run, everybody's still having fun fishing.
Yeah. And we saw that, here, the growth of things. I did a tournament I think we did it for about 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
And tournaments really aren't my thing.
Yeah.
We did it because it was always for a good cause for the American Cancer Society.
Yeah.
Or we would do it to help a particular kayaker who was in need.
Yeah.
But the whole competitiveness of the tournaments, I saw a really ugly side that turned me off.
Yeah.
And so I backed away from that. And then you said there was fracturing a little bit.
Yeah.
We went from having one kayak fishing website out here. And again, this is back when there was forums.
Yeah. Right.
Before social media.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Dennis had his, which was definitely one of the first. And then there was a couple more. So there was that one up in LA. And then I had one down here.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I had 7 different kayak fishing forums in San Diego.
Yeah.
It's like, does everybody need a forum? I don't get it. So things started getting clicky and fracturing and all that. It got a little weird. Now all the old guys that we used to kayak fish have been talking, and most of them have boats now, but there's still a lot of love. There's a lot of love. Once that initial thing kind of blew apart, it's kind of come back to just a couple of things and people sharing information again, and it seems like it's becoming a good community again. Because overall, I think it always was, but it just there was just a brief moment in time where it got very fractured.
Yeah, and it's still that way in some places. but for the most part, people have kind of formed their own groups, their own kind of people, their own cultures, and so forth. And you don't have to be the same everywhere. I mean, everybody does it differently. My
Right.
fun is like when I go somewhere and I travel and I fish with somebody different and learn something from them. I learn more from them than I could ever teach them. When I'm
Right.
fishing with them. And I learned just like you probably. I learned by watching my clients. Hey, that's pretty cool what you just did there. And
Maybe I should start reeling like this.
yeah, yeah. And by the way, I want to ask you this one question from guiding. If did you ever take a married couple out?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel like the wife or the female would listen to you better than the guy did?
99% of the time.
Absolutely. The guy would always
I did have one couple
yeah,
that the wife was an expert.
yeah.
And I literally
Huh.
at some point during the day, I'm like, why did you hire me? You obviously know everything. Because I
Wow.
couldn't tell this woman a
Yeah.
thing.
Wow.
She knew everything, didn't want to hear from me. I'm like, why am I here? I mean,
Wow.
I'll take your money, but I'm not having fun.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
They say here in Missouri, they say if you can make it till we do float trips in rivers here just for fun, and they say if you're a new couple and you can make it, if you guys can make it that 6 mile float, then you've probably found somebody that you could be with. So that's a relationship
well,
tester here in Missouri
yeah,
as a float
and
trip.
well, people when they fished with me, they'd ask me, "Do you have a tandem kayak for us?" I go, "Do you want a divorce?"
right, yeah, no.
They have joint Facebook accounts too. It's like,
Yeah.
The only people I would ever, and I had tandem. The only time I would ever do that was on a bay bass fishing trip, and if it was a young kid.
Yeah.
Other than that, no, we're in separate kayaks. My wife never wanted to be in a tandem kayak with me.
Yeah,
She
right.
wanted her own kayak. We get,
And well, Dee Kaminsky's on, and she said the husband-wife issue with guiding so crazy, and it's so true. I would have gals, they'd stay with me and they'd fish and they'd be catch these big bass, and the guy's doing his own thing, and she's look, honey, I got this 5-pound bass, and about 2 hours later he come over, okay, show me what to do.
I wonder with D though if it's different, if it's the guys listen to her better and the girls don't listen
Oh
to
yeah,
her.
I don't know. Maybe she'll tell us. Yeah,
That's a good
We're excited to hear
question.
about that one, D.
That's
yeah.
really
We're
funny.
gonna have her on, so we'll find out some good stories from her.
That's wonderful.
So anyway, good show here, man. We've gone quite a while, but the thing is, we got to tell a story though, Jim. And you did a great job, man.
I really appreciate you guys. Like I said, you kind of reinvigorated me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, if I'm in San Diego, I'm going to give you a call beforehand.
No, do
Same.
it.
We're
Do
going
it.
to be them select few. You said I'll do a select few. So if Marty Hughes or Trey Dawson comes to California,
Yeah.
Jim, you can't swipe me left, bro. You got to say, all right, I'll take this long hair prison kid and catch him some type of fish.
Yeah.
Well, we might have to jump in my 22-foot pilot house and
I'm cool with it, bro.
go look for tuna.
That's okay. We'll do it. That'd be great. But yeah, so I still have family there.
Oh, great.
They're in California, so quite a few, I think, still, but we're pretty well spread out. But anyway, we really appreciate it and look forward. I hope you can tune in sometime and see some of the others, maybe, and then I will probably personally reach out to you at some point when we're doing the writing on this and maybe ask some questions sometime here because we've got some plans to really make this something so that there's a legacy left of what this really was about in the beginning. So
that's very cool. Look forward to it.
All right, man. Okay, well, we're gonna let you go, and thank you, Jim. And hope your wives gets better, and that we really appreciate both of you what you've done for the sport.
Thank you, guys, and again, I really appreciate you having me on here. It was super fun.
All righty, man. Okay, take care. Okay, remove from scene, and then I'm going to. Hey, Trey.
I'm here.
What a show, man!
That was awesome.
Incredible. And the hundreds of people we had on are dwindling now, but that's okay. But a lot of people were thankful of it. There's one, Jamie Martin. I don't know Jamie Martin, but
yeah, Jamie Martin's from right here in Columbia. She was actually she when I first got out of prison, my first dog for backyard canine was actually her dog Chip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, I'm going to put up a new video of my dog. I trained her to do something else, Trey. What do you think?
What is it now? Well, let me guess. Did you get her to tie knots?
Close.
She's
Close. That's a good guess. No, she gets her leash and tells me she wants to go for a walk.
so she's in control.
She's in control. She goes
Okay.
and gets her leash. She brings it to me and says, "Let's go for a walk." I'm going to put up a video about it. Is that cool or what?
That's
I'm
awesome.
I'm getting pretty good at this dog training, being home with her all day. So, all right.
Yeah, a ton of comments, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
Thanks.
yeah. So
Well,
big
okay.
shout
And,
out
and
to
our
outdoorsy
next
really
guest
engaged.
next week, or not next. Yeah. I think the next one is in 2 weeks, and it's going to be Dee Kaminsky on a Wednesday night. So we'll get that out there. And also, if anybody's out there, drop some names. We have a big list of names, but we want to get people on that have impacted this, kind of nationwide in a way, maybe regionally. We're going to progress through this and keep having people on and tell these stories, man, because there's just so many. And I'm telling you guys, if you saw Jim back in the early days, I was just fascinated by his shows. Those shows are still out there, and there's a lot of YouTube videos on it too. But just how they fish, it's just incredible.
Yeah, you had said we had someone on here. Was it Caro, from somewhere tropical? Was it
Oh,
Carl Ferguson?
that was I met him. Just a second. Who I'm scrolling down. There's a lot of comments. Oresco, I think it's Orisco. He is in Dominican or Oriska. Oriska. I met him on an island.
That's what I'm saying. He might if
Yeah.
you know these people, you probably know someone that's been that's there that just
Yeah.
puts a whole new light on what we're doing here when it comes to kayak fishing. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah, he's not. He just. I don't think he kayak fished, but he was on the island and he was cooking for us.
Oriska Beacon.
Yeah,
Yeah, there he is.
I met him on an island in the
That's
Caribbean.
awesome.
And by the way, my wife, I don't know if I should say this. We're going on a big trip down to the Caribbean next winter. So we're gonna go sailing on a big boat. We're gonna go on a long trip. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. All right. So next one is Dee Kaminsky. We can't wait, man. But Jim was awesome. Dennis was awesome. And we got even more people coming on, but this is turning into quite the story, man. And we want to thank our sponsors, and I got to figure out a way to change our screen a little bit so we can see them, because I cannot. They maybe we could place them different. I don't know, but there's our sponsors again: Tourney X, KBF, Little Miami, and Kayak Jack Outdoors. We really appreciate them, what they're doing in the world of kayak fishing as well. So,
And we are working on a way, guys, to be able to do a prize pack at the end of our trips.
yeah,
If you guys have any ideas, you want to shoot us something on how you think, we just don't want to take what somebody else is already doing.
yeah,
We do want a way to be able to, give you guys an incentive. I mean, you guys stuck with us for 2 hours
yeah.
sitting here listening to the story, and that's awesome. But we would love to be able to put some stuff together and be able to send it out to you. So if you guys got any ideas how we can do that, me and Marty's going to think about that. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we want to make this about everybody out there. I mean, it's not about us here. We just like to have you guys tell your story, and like I said, for years I've had this on my mind that we need to get people's stories out there, like for Dee and Jim and Dennis and Chad, everybody, because a lot of people don't know what they went through to get where we are today with kayak fishing. And of course, it is progressing into this little small motorboat sometimes, but you know what? When I go to a lake, Trey, I see more people paddling than have the big fancy boats and pedals and all that. So, I mean, there's a lot of paddlers out there, and they're experiencing it the way that we experienced when we first started.
I've
So.
gotten so bad that I'm only taking a half a paddle with me now. Like I have lost. So my Steve Billington on here will tell you I have lost like 4 paddles that I paid over $100 for.
Oh
And then
man!
my old town got to a strap that I do it down. I have lost 4. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take this paddle. I'm going to split it in half.
We're ending in 4 seconds. We're cutting us off.
Okay.
2
All
hours.
right.
So, all right. Later, everybody. All right.